Good morning, everyone. Good morning. We are continuing what we said yesterday, and that is learning about the um, the commandment that God gave in the beginning of this week's Torah portion to Moses. God told Moses, "Tell the Jewish people that they should bring to you pure olive oil to light the light in the tabernacle constantly." And then right after that, it said that Moses said to Aaron that you should light here's the oil. You give it the oil to Aaron, because Aaron is the one that lights the candles. And the light should be going from the evening to the morning. It doesn't say constantly, evening to the morning. So the Rebbe asks, why did God even speak? Why did God tell Moses that the people should bring him the oil? Why didn't they just bring it directly to Aaron? And why is it when it says that Moses is supposed to make the lights, the candles in the tabernacle light constantly? And by Aaron, it doesn't say constantly. It only says from the evening to the morning. So why? So the Rebbe says, okay, what we're talking about over here is not just a ritual that was done in the tabernacle. It was not just a ritual. It certainly was a ritual, but it wasn't just that. It was much, 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 much more. It was much more than that. It was God's will in order that the Jewish people should do what God chose them for, to improve the world, to make the world a holy place. In order to do this, you have to activate the Jews. The Jews are the plug, so to speak. They plug the world into its source, which is God. Sort of a very, how do you say, oversimplified way of saying it, but it's something like that. So the world has to be activated, and the Jews are the ones that activate it. And what does it mean, activated? That the world should go the way it's supposed to be. It should be healthy. Like the difference between a healthy person and a sick person. A healthy person just acts the way he's supposed to, and a sick person is concerned with himself. Right? This hurts me. That hurts me. He can't function in the world. A sick person. So the purpose of the Jews is to make the world healthy, not to think about themselves, to think about and to be aware of God. But first of all, the Jewish people have to do it first. And in order for the Jewish people to do this, that's why we have Aaron and Moses to activate them. Aaron activated them in one way and Moses in another way. Generally speaking, Moses' big thing was to bring God down. Moses brought the Torah down into the world. Moses brought all the miracles in Egypt down. And Aaron's thing was to light the lights that's to bring everything up. Everything should be up. And that implies the Jewish people. That he has to make the Jewish people enthusiastic about God. That's Aaron's thing. Okay, so let's see where we can get over here with this. Here we go. Yes, here we go. We got up to here yesterday. Okay, so again, the upper worlds are just a more real picture of what God is, and that gives you more pleasure. The closer you get, the more pleasure you get. But it's like somebody has, let's say, a picture of his parents that he has been separated from for a long time ago, from a long time, or his children. He'd been separate parents from their children. You bring them a picture. Here's a picture of your son. I just took this picture. Wow, where'd you get this? It's my son. Wow, I've been longing for him. Here's a picture. Then they bring another picture. Here's a picture. This picture is from 5 years ago. Here's a picture from a week ago. Here's a picture from yesterday. Oh, the closer you get, the more love you have, the more interested you are. Right? And here's a letter from your son. He wrote you a letter. And here is a telephone call. Any second he's going to do. You speak to him. Hello, this is my son. The closer you become, he'll find you. You see him. Oh, you see that you embrace your son. You embrace your father. Your wife. Whatever the people that you've been far away from for a long time. That's it. So the same thing is also with God. Where the Jewish people, God, no matter how close we get, to God, like the angels. The angels are very close to God, but they're still far away. They're burning up. They're going crazy about God. So, but the closer that you become, the more the love is revealed, the more the reality is revealed, the more the pleasure is revealed. It says this pleasure is drawn into the world by the commandments. By the commandments. The commandments are what draws the reality of God into the world. And because God is so precious and so valuable and so close to us and so dear, a million times more than a father or a son or whether, I mean, any people who love their people who don't love their parents. It's people who don't love their children. The people who don't love children at all. They don't want to have children, right? They want to have anything to do with children. But people that do have children and they do have parents, that's one big thing, by the way. I guess I always have to throw this in, but I could throw it out also. With this whole woke movement, right? I mean, according to the woke movement, there's no more family. There's no more children. There's no more, like all these relationships they have, these homosexual relationships, they can't give children. As a result, there's no more parents. There's no more really family. So you never really experience what is true love, what is really true pleasure, true pleasure. The pleasures are just very, either carnal pleasures or very, selfish sort of pleasures. The pleasure of giving yourself to someone else. Inner connection, not because of what that person gives to you, but because of what I guarantee you. Most of these other relationships, if one person is sick or whatever, so the relationship just sort of dissolves. But if there's true love, then you don't care even if the person is not even alive. True love is eternal. So the closer that you become, the more love that there is. Who is the one that makes the Jews close to God? That makes them that gives them this feeling that God really exists, God really loves us. That's Aaron. That's this pleasure. This is drawn through the commandments. When you do a commandment, what you're doing is you're not just doing a symbolic thing or you're doing a religious act. You are actually doing the will of your creator. Now, the will of your creator is also the world is also the will of the creator, right? That you have a circulatory system and you have a nervous system. That's also the will of the creator. Right? Everything is the will of the creator, but the inner will of the creator. Why do you have a nervous system? Why did God create the world? That's the commandments. That's what the commandments are. The commandments are not just religious acts. The commandments are reality acts, higher than the angels. Higher than the angels. The commandments are higher than the angels. All these things are just creations of God. So the commandments, though, they're 99% creator and only 1% creation. They're just found in the world. Right? The angels are, let's say, 90% creation and 10% creator. And we are exactly the opposite. Right? So the commandments are like almost pure godliness. They just happen to be in the world. Who would dream that godliness is putting two boxes on your head, a box on your head and a box on your arm? It's above understanding. That's the commandments. But when you realize a Jew, he does a commandment and he realizes this is what God really wants, and that God is right now, he's creating me, and I'm connecting right now to my inner essence of what in reality, even higher than the angels, what the angels are all screaming about. The angels are saying, where is God? God is holy. And they say, the earth is filled with God's glory. So that's the commandments. The commandments, therefore, the commandments are compared to these lights, to the lamps in the holy temple. They just like when you light a lamp, the fire is nitmaleh bayis, or the house becomes filled with light. Kach, also the same thing by doing the commandments. When a Jew does the commandments, there is a little bit of a ray of the upper worlds of heavens. The angels up in heaven, they get an awareness of God. They get an awareness of God. We don't have any awareness of God in this world. But when you do a commandment, it shoots from the lowest to the highest. So the source becomes revealed in this world. So we get a little shot of what it is in Gan Eden. We just don't understand it. We can't comprehend it. And when we did a little bit, when God gave the Torah, the Jews said it's too much, we can't take it. Therefore, it says, but we can feel a little bit of a joy of the commandments. Joy, it's one of the curses in Parshat Kitavo. There's 98 curses if the Jews don't do what God wants. And over there, it explains a little bit that the reason you're getting these curses is because you didn't serve God with joy. What's so wrong with lacking joy? I do whatever God wants to, She says, no, you didn't do it with joy, means it's no good. What does it mean it's no good? Maybe I'll give you an example. I'm making this up. You can, let's say a couple that's married, right? A couple that's married, and the husband is a good husband, or he brings flowers and everything, but he doesn't love his wife. He doesn't love his wife, right? Once in a while, he even says, well, I wish you were like the next door neighbor's wife. She really looks beautiful. I wish you were like the next door neighbor's wife. She knows how to cook. Right? But he does everything he has to for his wife. He brings her food, he brings her money, and he says nice things to her. And stuff. But once in a while, he just, he lets her know that he doesn't really love her. It's just an arrangement and, convenience sake. So, I mean, a marriage like that, if it does last, it's not a really happy, genuine marriage. Not a genuine marriage. Why? Because he's doing everything he has to do, but it's not genuine. He doesn't really care about his wife one way or another. The same thing, a person that does the commandments. You do the commandments, you don't really care about God. You do it. Do the commandments, all the religious, but I'm not going to do the commandments, right? My father did the commandments, my grandfather, you do the commandments. So it's good. You do what you have to do, but there's no love there. It's the same thing with God. You should feel happy. If a person that genuinely loves his wife, he's happy to see her. He's happy to see. He's sad if she's gone. The same thing with you really genuinely love God. So you're supposed, or the other way around. I guess we're the wife here in this case. But you're happy when the wife is generally happy when the husband comes home, and misses when they're not home. So that you do the commandments, but if you're missing God and you don't care, doesn't feel bad. So therefore, it's missing the whole life of the whole thing. The whole dynamics of the whole business is missing. It's like having a beautiful car or whatever, and there's no gas to it, or there's no starter or something like that. Right? But it's beautiful. The thing is worth $1 million. Everybody says, wow, what a beautiful car. It's amazing. Right? But let's say you don't know how to start it. You can't put it into first gear. Okay, so here we have Aaron, therefore he gives love. He provides the love to the Jewish people so that they flame up to God. And when they do the commandments, that's what it means that there's a punishment. It says that because you were not happy with God, mirov call from the great bounty, mirov call from the great bounty. Simple meaning is that God's given you everything, and that God is one of the curses. It's Parshas Titavo in the book of Deuteronomy. There's one chapter, Parshas Titavo, and there's 98 curses over there, and it says over there that it's because you have not served God with joy from the great bounty that God gave. So simply, it means that God gave you a lot of food. He gave you the house. He gave you the land. He gave you everything, and you should be happy. But the deeper meaning, says the Baal Shem Tov, is that you should be happier from the great bounty. That's called heaven. Great rove call is a hint at heaven, the afterlife. You should be more happy doing a commandment in this world than the angels are happy in the upper worlds. Yote mirov kol, ki rov kol, this is the pleasures of the world to come in heaven. And the commandments have to be done with even more joy than that. Now, how can you do that? How can you possibly do that? So the answer is that you have to, number one, think about it deeply. And number two, you have to have a good example of someone that does that. And that's Aaron, or at least someone who's convincing you that it's possible that you can do it. And number three, you have to work on it yourself. You have to do a lot of work. It's not easy. So it says all the pleasures you can get in this world, it's okay, but you shouldn't be sunk in the pleasures of this world. But what about the pleasures of heaven? Oh, that's a good thing. That's a religious thing. As it says the Rebbe, that's not Judaism. That's not Judaism. Judaism is that you get pleasure in doing the commandments more than the pleasures of heaven. Because heaven is just a creation, and the commandments are from the Creator. Now, we're just talking about this. We don't even get the pleasure of the angels, not even lowest pleasure. But to know that there is such a thing, and to know that it's open to us, even though it might be a very, very small and they're not discernible whole. Like, for instance, somebody told me that they taught the Japanese, taught their pilots to see the stars in the daytime. Is that true? I don't know, but that's what I've been told a couple of. Now look at this guy. In the daytime, you ever see a star in the daytime? You see, but they trained them somehow or other to be sensitive to notice the slight difference between starlight and sunlight. Okay, I don't know if this really happened, but the example is a good example. The Rebbe is trying to get us used to seeing the little tiny bit of godliness which is in the commandments, And when we do say that little bit of the world is like the sunlight, and it's just, it's blocking out, we can't see it. But when we do see the little bit, or at least we believe that there is, so you feel very happy when you're doing a commandment. You realize it's a very deep, intimate unity between us and the Creator when we do the commandments. They say that the Ramban, Rab Moses ben Nachman, he lived right after the Rambam, 100 years or something, that he was a very spiritual person, holy person. They say he was the last of the Kabbalists. They say when he would put on tefillin, he had that people hold him up because it was like a unity between him and God, like a marriage day. So it says, therefore, when you do the commandments, you should be happy. Who is the one who gives that? That's the aspect of Aaron. Aaron does it. But who, and it is, how can we be happy doing the commandments with such tremendous feeling, more happiness than going to heaven? We don't even know what heaven is. So he says, I'll tell you, the Rebbe's going to give us advice. Ready? Listen. Who, kasher yasim el libo, a person is to take to his heart. Keep a shemayim, but from the heavens above. As we talk on the earth below, I'll call Shavach Maseyodecha, that God is above any sort of praises that you can give him. From the heavens above, Ze Gan Eden Elyon. That's what's talking about the upper heaven. Usually that's the world of Bria. That's talking about the lower heaven. That's usually the world of Yetzirah. The praise is not in them to you. Ella she'en bechinas ma'aseh yedecha. Praising the revelation of God in heaven, in the lower heaven, the upper heaven, these are just God's handiwork. Kamal derech Moshe, just like you praise a person, but ma'aseh yadav in his what he did with his hands. Echshu kotev, how he writes gadol or shemetzayer tzira nar. He's drawing a nice picture. Right? You praise the Alter Rebbe because he has such beautiful handwriting, right? Let's take a more real, down to earth example, right? You say, you ever see a Shakespeare play? Shakespeare was a big genius. You ever see his handwriting? This is really amazing. Well, okay, it's a nice thing. It's an additional thing, but the main thing is the talent, the wisdom that comes through the thing. The same thing is with the Torah, right? The Torah, the letters of the Torah. That's the you see a person who writes nicely, has a nice handwriting. That's what you praise. The main thing is the content, what's inside. And even more is the author himself, not the handwriting. So it says the Rebbe, that's the same thing. The heavens, that's like God's handwriting. That's like the handiwork of God. What is God himself? It says all of the praises that we can possibly praise about how God is revealed in the upper heaven, the lower heaven, the souls, to get pleasure on God, understanding, and no matter what praise that you can give God, is Ella, the Hamshachas Maisa, you're only praising God's handiwork. It's like you're praising the king because he has nice shoes. That in this, the Yeshlem Haskala Vasaga, that in this, the angels and the souls, they can understand a little bit that God is creating them. But what is God himself? That's what we get when we do the commandments. And Nimshach, which is drawn to them. So, here we go, I'm sorry. Key, because maybe I overdid it a little bit. Here we go. Yeah, I overdid it. Okay, let's make it a little bit smaller. There we go. Says that's nothing, all the heavens and everything, that's nothing compared to the commandments. Let's just go to the previous page. What happened over here? Here it says, What's this? Okay, so it says all of the heavens. That's just the angels are going crazy. They're going crazy from a little ray of godliness, which is drawn to them, from the commandments. Which are called the handiwork of God, and the lower an arousal from us in this world. Excuse me. When we do a commandment, that there's an arousal from above, that God reacts to what we do. It says when the Jews put on tefillin, God puts on tefillin. God himself heals the sick. God blesses the years. God provides bounty to the Jewish people, physical money. That's from God's essence, God himself. And from this, okay, so when we do a commandment, that activates God to give blessings in the world. And from this blessing that God gives in the world, it comes through in heaven. To get pleasure from God, from their understanding, the angels, from this drawing down of godliness. That's called Maisa Yodav Magid Rakia. That's what it means, that your handiwork, which in this case is talking about the commandments, all of the heavens, they praise God. There's many levels from above this, with in this understanding, many types of pleasures without any end. Because there's infinite numbers of levels of heaven. So we can see it in this world also. We can see it in this world that, some people get pleasure from you. The poor people, they get in a garbage can, they find a can with a sardine in it. Oh, they're tremendously happy, right? They're tremendously happy. Below them, there are the cats, whatever, that they eat for the garbage that even the poor people don't eat. And that makes them happy. And then there's the worms. The worms, they eat from the excrement of the cats. So that makes the worms happy, right? That makes the worms happy. And then there's germs, which are below that. So, all of these are motivated by pleasure. They're all motivated by pleasure. If you want to call it the will to live, they're motivated just by physical considerations. They want to be alive. They say it. There's a pursue pain, pursue pleasure, and avoid pain. Right? That's the working principle of animals. But that's not for human beings. Human beings aren't. Human beings are motivated by meaning, by something more meaningful, by something more valuable. The love that animals have for their families, usually it doesn't last that long, but whatever love they have, that's already a natural thing. A human beings can love ideas. They can love principles, right? They can love people, even though those people are not even around anymore. But even more so, and that's what the Rebbe wants to say, that the Jewish people want to teach the whole world to love and to enjoy the creator of the universe, and to realize that that's where all existence comes from. How do they do that? By the commandments. The commandments are the tube, the pipes that bring godliness into the world. And there's infinite numbers of worlds, and when the Jews do the commandments, it arouses God to to keep all of them alive without any end. Even though that in heaven, even though in the books it's only mentioned the upper heaven and the lower heaven. Hari Omer Rizal, the rabbis say, Talmidei Chachamim, it says that Torah scholars, if they haven't got any rest, it says that they go from level to level. So there's infinite numbers of levels of heaven. And all of these represents different stages of life form that come into the world from the essence of God when a Jew does a commandment. That's one reason, I know we talked about that yesterday, that's one reason why the Jewish people are eternal. Because if there were no Jewish people, God forbid, there wouldn't be any world. And that's what a lot of these people want, right? usually the big enemies of the Jews, they would like it if there was no world. Usually they love death. Usually. The people who are against the Jews are against life. They're against life, even if they don't know it themselves, even if they're Jews themselves. And this it says, he called b'shamayim v'orz, that everything in the heavens and the earth, that is unified. God is unified, the heavens and the earth, because the heavens and the earth are all just creations. They're creations of God. And God creates them with his reality. And that reality, when a person feels it, is pleasure. Tremendous, tremendous pleasure. And all of these pleasures of all the heavenly worlds and all of this are like nothing compared to doing one commandment in this world, which is above all the pleasures. It's the essence. That's what Abraham revealed. That's Judaism. Abraham revealed that the goal of man is not to get pleasure, not even heavenly pleasure. It's to do what God wants. And that's the whole idea. What's written in the books, Sheyesh Amud, that there is a pillar from Gan Eden in heaven, Shabo and Ed Olim, that go from Gan Eden Elyon, the Tachton, that you go from the upper heaven to the lower heaven. I'm a bit suspicious of this, that maybe it's a printing error or something. I don't know. It's just that you go up. It should say from Gan Eden to Tachton the Elyon, I would think. Anyway, there's a pillar that is a road which goes from the upper heaven to the lower heaven, from the lower heaven to the upper heaven. Sha'amud hu mechaber, this pillar, that's the commandments. This pillar, it joins the upper heaven with the lower heaven. And by means of it, it's also the same kamo b'chinas amudim, and the kama b'chinas amudim, there's a lot of these levels of pillars. It says all the commandments, they're all pillars. It says there's 620 pillars of light. The kama b'chinas tzadikim, and it says that also each and every tzaddik has, each one, according to his level, has a different pipeline of godliness from one level to the other. Kama b'chinas aliyos, elevations from one level to the other. Ke'inyan, like it says, nun alfei yovlos, like it says that there's 50,000 jubilees. Now, jubilees is 50 years, but it's not talking about 50 physical years. It's talking about the source of time. And 50 years, that's a term of bina, from God's understanding. Anyways, there's 50,000 different levels of these jubilee years, that everything is going up from one level to another, and up an awareness of God, awareness of reality. You can sort of see it in the world. I mean, it's a very strange thing. People are born, excuse me, people are born with almost no consciousness at all, right? Little children, they just can't think for themselves. They can't connect with people. They have no consciousness. They're just like animals. They're like nothing. And then in the course of time, they get a little bit older. They can speak a little bit. Then they can get attached to the world. Then they can start understanding ideas. Then they can speak a little bit more. That's what they become. But you see that the world, people aren't created complete. And so it is with everything. In the world, it grows. That's a very, I saw a letter by the Rebbe. You can look at the world two ways. Either, everything dies. But on the other hand, how did everything come into existence that it dies? I mean, what, it would be better that nothing was created at all. True, things die. Yes, that's the fact. But let's look at the positive side of it. Things are alive. And not only are they alive, but the nature of things is to grow. So as the Rebbe says, that's also what the Jewish people want, to make everyone grow. Also, we want to call it spiritually or godly. All of this, we're talking about this growth from one level. This is just a ray of godliness, which is drawn from God's handiwork of Ein Sof himself, the infinite one himself. In his essence, late machshava tafisa bey, no thought can possibly grasp God at all. It's an insult to God to say that he's incomprehensible, as though you could think he was understandable. That's why the angels, they say, Kodesh, Kodesh, that God is holy, is holy. His reality is totally divided from them. Impossible. It's like trying to explain, like an example, let's say, trying to explain mathematics to a rock. Explain mathematics to a rock, and you explain mathematics to a rock. Makes no sense. Okay, so I'll make it a little easier. Explain mathematics to a tree. That's stupid. That's stupid. Makes no sense. How do you explain mathematics to a tree? Well, the greater is the distance between mathematics and a rock is the distance between God and us. Because mathematics is part of the creation and a rock is part of the creation. But God is not part of the creation, so to speak. He's the creator. It's totally impossible to even say in a category that God is in the category of understanding. It's just a different reality. There's a totally different reality. Exactly the opposite. All reality comes from God. That's what the angels say, that we feel ourselves to be real and we realize that we're not. God is, the creator is totally separate from us, but he's creating us. God is creating everyone. Machman said because of this, says that all the angels, they're in a tremendous noise. They say, where's the place of God? But the commandments themselves, hein bechinas or haner, they are the source of this light. That from it comes all the light in all of the worlds. That's the commandments are the source of the light of the creative force, the source of the creative force of all of the worlds. They makar aziv, and they are the source of this ray. She'em nikrim evorim damalka. They are called the limbs of the king. They are the limbs and the vessels for Or Ein Sof Baruch Hu Mamish. So when you think about this, you don't think about yourself so much. You realize what you're doing when you do a commandment. Therefore, the call of mitzvahs and all the commandments, it says, Lifnei Hashem, Lifnei Hashem. Chukas olam dadorotechem, Lifnei Hashem. Before God. Before, what does it mean before God? It means the commandments are really before God. They're in God's essence. Like it says, that I command you today. Today, right now, you do them. And what do you do them? Anochi. Then you're in touch with Anochi, the essence of God, the first of the 10 commandments, the first word. This is God's essence and his very being. I, says God, my essence, mitzavacha, I am commanding you. Okay, so now when you do a commandment, now you're looking at it in a totally different way. Therefore, simcha, when you do the commandments, you should be tremendously happy. Thank God that I'm alive. Thank God that I can connect myself and the whole entire world with God. I'm opening up a pipeline every time I do a commandment. Giving charity, learning the Torah. Because you're connecting yourself, you have a tremendous happiness. The great happiness with God, who Or Ein Sof, but God is Or Ein Sof, really. Hamalubash, which is in the commandments. And this is Mirov, you should be happier than Mirov call, than all of heaven. So, a religious person, let's say a religious Jew, and first of all, Hasidim, generally speaking, the whole Hasidic movement was really developed not to think about heaven. You don't think about heaven, because you think about heaven, it's selfish. Right? Generally speaking, that was the big difference between the Hasidim and the anti-Hasidim, what's called the Misnagdim. The Misnagdim thought by means of doing commandments, you're going to go to heaven. And we're going to go to heaven. And that was the big motivating factor in their Judaism. And the Hasidim, at least that's the way it's supposed to be. They were thinking by means of doing the commandments, we're making God happy. I don't know what I'm going to get out of it. And in fact, I'm willing to throw myself into the fire if that's what makes God happy, like Abraham did. Wanted to sacrifice him is Yitzchak, because that's what made God happy. That's the how do you say, the soul of Judaism. Soul of Judaism. But on the other hand, it's not so easy. I mean, to make God happy is much more, how do you say, much less user-friendly than to make myself happy. Right? I'm doing the commandments. I'm going to go to heaven. The other people aren't doing it. They're a problem. I'm in Noah's Ark. I'm going to get saved from the flood. I'm doing commandments. I'm learning Torah. I'm going to go to heaven. And that's it. And my children are going to go to heaven. Everybody's going to go to heaven. And and the other people, they're just a bunch of fools. They're not going to go to heaven. That's one way of thinking about. But as you can see, it's a bit selfish, and it's not happy at all, because you're always thinking about yourself. But ideally, the Hasidic movement started by the Baal Shem Tov is that the more you think about God and the more you realize that you're pleasing God and the less you think about yourself, the happier you'll be. You're free. You left Egypt. And that's what it means. You should be happy serving God, happy serving God, mirov kol, even the pleasures of heaven. The pleasures of heaven, in the end, after everything, are selfish. When you do the commandments, you're doing it only for God. The problem is it's not easy to figure out what God is. To go to heaven, you're going to die one day, and you know what pleasure of this world is. So you multiply it by 80 or 1,000,000 or something. That's the pleasure of heaven. So that's a little bit sort of understandable. It's worthwhile to do the commandments. You go to heaven, you get the Muslims say they get 70 virgins, and these people go up and they're going to be up in the upper spheres, right? Whatever it is, all the religions basically are thinking about going to heaven. Judaism is supposed to be that you think about the Creator. You're not thinking about yourself. And what does the Creator want? To benefit the whole creation. And this you do by connecting to the Creator, which can only be done through the commandments. That's the level of call the Achi B'Shamayim, the unity of God, which makes the heaven and the earth. That's why it says Yafa Sha'achas is better just one moment of doing tshuva and good deeds in this world than all of the life of the world to come. So the Rebbe wants us to be in this level, which is, if he's saying it, it must be attainable to everybody. This is not talking about being, spiritual or being a tzaddik. Exactly the opposite. Spiritual and being a tzaddik is a very good thing. Very good thing. But there's something much higher than that. And what's that? To be simple, to do the commandments. You have to have both. You have to have both. You have to learn Torah. You have to know secrets. You have to know Kabbalah. That's what we're learning here. But the purpose of the whole thing is to be simple. I am going to be doing whatever God wants. He wants me to put on tefillin. Makes God happy, I'll do it. You want to learn the Kabbalistic meaning of putting on tefillin and why the hand and the arm and why the 4 different parchments. Wonderful. You should do that. It's a commandment to learn it. That's another commandment. But our main point should be is that when we're doing a commandment, that we are giving God pleasure. And only Aaron can really inspire us to believe this is true and to really do it. This joy comes or in soul in the soul of man. This is by means of Aaron. Aaron is the one that he lights the candles. He lights the candles so that there should be light and joy. I don't know if you've ever been in a totally dark room, or once in a while, like in a stadium or something, all the lights go out, right? And everybody goes, ooh. And then after like about a minute, people start getting a little scared, right? What's going on over here? Maybe this was planned. Maybe something's going to happen. Maybe it's going to that's the beginning. Maybe it's going to get worse. People get scared. All of a sudden, somebody lights a little light. Everybody's happy. Light makes people happy. That's it. And the commandments, says the Rebbe, is light, from the source of light. And that should make the person doing it, and even more, the whole world happy. Aaron, he's one of the 7 shepherds, Hamafarnasim, and they provide and they draw life to all the Jewish people from above, or in Sof. Okay, so here we have another interesting thing in Judaism. We have people that are special people. Like we had the high priest, the Kohen Gadol. He went into the Holy of Holies, and he brought blessing to all the Jewish people. One person blessed everybody. That's the Kohen. So we have certain people that have the ability to give blessings. We have certain people that have the ability to attach the Jewish people with God. That's Aaron. Aaron was one of them. He is a roy. He is the shepherd. He nourishes, he provides for, and he draws down to all the Jewish people this light and this joy. sometimes it says it's great love. And when it draws, there's two levels. There's how Aaron yaroch et hanerot, ubahalot Aaron et hanerot. Yaroch et hanerot. First of all, Aaron prepares the lamps, puts the cleans them out, puts the wicks in, and then he lights them. Yaroch liot arucha, that the lamps on the menorah, that they are ready, the shmura, and they are protected. Belev v'nefesh, in the heart of a person. Now we're talking about Aaron lighting up the Jewish people, not just the lights in the Holy Temple. The lights in the Holy Temple, when Aaron did it, he had the proper intention. This did something to the souls of the Jewish people. It stirred them. This awakened the heart of the Jewish people. That's called aroch, when he prepared made the people think about God in the deepness of their heart. B'yagias hanefesh, but by exerting your soul and thinking deeply in the greatness of God. Kasher tuchal nafsho, as much as you can. And this draws down this great happiness which comes from above, la'alot et hanefesh, to elevate the soul. That's the lighting up to the soul. Hu chaya chayim, to the essence of God, makar chayim, and the source of all pleasure. So Aaron, first of all, he inspires and he directs and he empowers the Jewish people to think about God, and think about God in a real way, that it inspires us to love. How good God is all the time. God is creating me all the time. And is that really real? If it really is real, God is really good. That attaches us to a level which is much, much higher than the whole entire creation, higher than the soul can bear. That's loving God with all of your heart. Loving God with all of your soul. Loving God with all of your being. That's what Aaron inspires the Jewish people to do. That's really the essence of Judaism. Loving God. So having this feeling of the reality of the closeness and the greatness of God, and that if we really love God, then what we're going to do what God wants. What does God want? That we should perfect the world. And you can only do that through the Torah and the commandments. As we're going to talk about more, God willing, tomorrow. So what did we learn? You have to be emotional about God. You have to be genuine about God. You have to be intimate with God. And that can only come through yourself. You have to think about it. Is all this stuff we're talking about, is this really real? Is this really normal? God is really creating me? How can it possibly? God's creating the whole world. That doesn't make any sense. Says, yeah, it's above sense. But Aaron is telling us that it's true. That's the Rebbe. He's telling us that it's true. Either he's making the whole thing up, which it could be, right? Could be, but when you start to read the words, you realize it's not so. I remember, I was not always religious. I remember this was like 50, it's already 55 years ago. 55 years ago. It's a long story, but I decided that's it. Judaism is where I'm a Jew. I'm going to learn the Torah. So, but it was very difficult for me. I didn't really know how to read Hebrew. But when I started to read, and I went to the classes, of course, I learned in the yeshiva in New York, Hadar Torah. And then I started understanding a little bit the ideas of Hasidut. I remember. It took me like about 2 years almost. And then I could read on my own. I remember the day I was just sitting and reading, and I thought to myself, and I was understanding things. A simple meaning, I was understanding. I thought, how can I be learning this stuff? How could this possibly me? What I was doing, right, a couple of years ago, and what I'm doing now, I'm actually reading about this. But the point is not just that I'm reading something that's very, very deep and very, very Kabbalistic. Right? There were other people that wrote Kabbalah and things like that. I didn't enjoy it at all. I read no, it doesn't make any difference. I read things in Kabbalistic stuff and totally turned me off. I didn't want to have anything to do with it. Suddenly you feel the truth coming through the letters, that this man is not fooling us. He's really saying things the way he experiences himself. It's not just he's tremendously intellectual and tremendously genius, and he's speaking with great sincerity. He is, in fact, there. He's talking about godliness from God's point of view. From God's point of view. I thought, who can this person be? How could it possibly be? And then I started to realize that's the Rebbe, a totally different type of a person. That's Aaron. This whole thing is to inspire us in us the reality of who we are. How the Jewish people were the only ones that can really bring truth of the Creator into the creation. As we'll talk about more, God willing, tomorrow. Now let's do the. Here we go.